Well, hey there friends, welcome back to another episode. I've got Kiki back here with me. It is treat time. Oh. And Eevee's gonna get her treat. She's by my feet right now. And Mr. Kiki is here. I am so blown away from the support, you guys. I just checked. There's 190 of you. Oh my gosh, like, I'm just me. 190 people are subscribed to my channel. I'm dumbfounded. I'm just your normal average person. There's nothing special about me. I have a unique experience, I guess, but just thank you for being here. And if you're not subscribed and you're watching, I guess please subscribe. That would mean so much. I am blown away. I just want to be able to help somebody by sharing my experience, so I'm grateful, so thank you. So if you're new here, my name is Amanda. I am a breast cancer survivor, as you can probably tell from the title and everything we just talked about. I am a cat mom to Kiki and Eevee. They like to make their grand appearances sometimes here and there. I am a competitive athlete. I compete in gymnastics and I run marathons and I do all the things like that. So this channel primarily talks about my journey with breast cancer, but also my athletic comeback. And we're going to be getting into some other topics fairly soon, but probably at the conclusion of my treatment, I did promise I would give you kind of the overview of everything that was leading up to cancer, or not leading up to cancer. We talked about that already. This is going to be the portion of chemotherapy. Now, if you watched the last video, you will have seen that we left off on May 17th, 2019. So 2019 is when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I started chemotherapy in 2019. So I'm gonna pull up my trusty Google Calendar. I also took some screenshots of things that I posted. If you follow me on Instagram, my handle there is my love letter to life, same as here. You can probably go back in time and you can see some of the journeys I went through, because it's been intense. It's been a lot. Cancer journey, not easy. Not easy at all. But I have a lot of updates there that you can check out from the years. But we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the chemotherapy portion and what I posted on Facebook to like my friends and family, my closer knit circle. So let's get into it. All right. I am going to be looking down a little bit. I have my computer in front of me with my calendar, and I've got my phone with all of my notes and things of what I want to talk about, so bear with me and grab a drink. Let's cozy up and we will talk about what chemotherapy was like for me. So, a high-level overview of everything. I went through 16 rounds of chemotherapy. I had 4 of AC chemo and then 12 rounds of Taxol. The first part of chemo, the hardest part of it, AC chemo. If you've gone through AC chemo, you probably know it's called the Red Devil. If you've had it, it's like red chemo that's actually going into your port. My port's on this side. It's the iridomycin Cytoxin combo, and then I had Taxol. So the AC chemo for me was a double dose of chemo, so I did it every 2 weeks. And then the next portion, Taxol, was weekly. So let's get into things. I am very fatigued today. So bear with me. Even 7 years out, like, my energy levels just kind of go like this a lot. But we'll get into it. Okay, my first round of chemo was on Friday, May 17th. And, you know, initially I thought not so bad. I was scared However, when I went into all of this, when I went into the treatment, I overheard somebody there, one of the nurses, I believe, one of the medical staff was gossiping about me, and I remember hearing them say I was too chipper for chemo. If you know me, I try to be positive, I try to be upbeat, because this is hard. And when I walked into this tiny room, it was just hard to see. The room was dark, it was like a closet. I ended up eventually switching to a different center because this location, although closer to me, they only did chemo on Fridays, and I would quickly learn that it was not a good idea for me to do chemo on Fridays. I needed to do it midweek, so when side effects kind of kicked in really bad, there was a medical staff on call that I could communicate with, because over the weekend you couldn't talk to anybody, so you ended up in the ER. And yeah, so my very first round of chemo was on that date, and this is, I don't know if you can see it, this is the photo I posted. I'll try to remember to put some like screenshots of the photos, but I was a huge Game of Thrones fan at that time. The final season hadn't aired yet, so I had the sword that said "Not Today" on it. But prior to the diagnosis, or prior to starting chemo, here is what I shared. I'm going to read this to you off my phone. This is when I shared with everybody what I was about to go through, and I wrote, "This is a post I never thought I would make. I'm a fairly private person, but after having a couple months to think about this, I thought I would share in case it can help somebody else. I have been diagnosed with breast cancer. The kind I have is very aggressive and rapidly growing. I have a great team of doctors working with me," I thought at the time, "and some things are still up in the air. I am forever thankful to have found that while it is still sort of early." Now, I was stage 2B, so we are on the end stage of early. So keep that in mind. And then I wrote, "Please, please, please stay on top of your screenings. Going to the doctor, even if you don't want to. Do your screenings, even if you are scared of the results. Take time to prioritize yourself. If you have a family history of cancer or any other diseases, stay on top of your health and listen to your doctors. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, or get a second opinion if something doesn't feel right." And that is exactly what I did with getting a second oncologist after that first one. You probably know about that from the last episode if you watched. Cancer can happen to anyone, even people like me who prioritize a healthy and active lifestyle. I intend on beating this and kicking cancer's ass. I mean, I do need to see how Game of Thrones ends after all. So that's what I posted. I took a photo wearing a shirt that said "Stronger Than Cancer," and that's what I shared. And then we went through chemo. We started round 1, so that was on the 17th. And I had to do weekly blood work, if I remember correctly, just to make sure that my levels, because when you go through chemo, you know, it kills off your immune system, and I had to make sure that I had enough of a count in my white blood cells to be able to be safe. And so I had my blood work done, and I was seeing my oncologist on a weekly basis, so I saw her the week after. And then I remember I was by myself, I didn't have anybody with me, and I ended up in the hospital, and my chemotherapy ended up getting delayed. There was a scare that I was neutropenic, meaning no blood cells, everything, or I mean no, I think your white blood cell count is at 1. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it was enough where anything, like any infection, anything could kill me. So something was not right. And I think there was also a delay in the insurance in giving me my weekly shot. I had to get a shot, gosh, now I can't remember the name of it, but it was to like increase your blood cell production, your white cells. So June 2nd rolls around, and that is National Cancer Survivors Day. So this is what I wrote about chemo, because I had just had my first round of chemotherapy. And I wrote, today is National Cancer Survivors Day. I haven't won the battle yet. I'm surviving, and I plan to keep on doing so. The side effects of chemo have been extremely rough. They have been made rougher by somebody in the billing department at the oncology office who coded the injections I needed wrong. Due to this error, the delay in the approval process, and the oncology office not noticing something went wrong, these necessary life-saving injections were denied. So already, okay, one round into chemotherapy and there's already a coding error issue. I'm already being denied treatment that I need to give me the best chance at staying alive. I'm already being denied that. And already having to just advocate and do all these things. Like, you're supposed to be fighting for your life during chemotherapy, okay? That was like supposed to be my number one job. Getting through this, surviving, going to my appointments, doing the thing. Not fighting coding and billing errors. And it gets worse. Alright, so it's June 2nd. Remember, I started chemo on May 17th. It's June 2nd. And on June 2nd, I wrote, I ended up in the ER twice this past week in a neutropenic state. It was very dangerous and scary, and I'm very lucky to be alive today. The second round of chemo has been postponed until my white blood cells are in a safe range. I have refused further treatment until they have the injections I need ready to go for me, as I am not willing to die because somebody coded something wrong. My hair has been falling out like crazy this past week, and today I took control and I shaved it myself. To all the survivors out there, keep kicking ass and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Had I chosen to wait and see if the injections were not approved, I may not be here. FYI, they are still not approved. Many thanks to the emergency room doctors and nurses for giving me the injection I needed, even though this was something they do not usually deal with. So we're one round into chemo. I'm already in the ER twice. I've already experienced being put into a neutropenic state. They code something wrong. Everyone just drops the ball. And this is like my impression of the place that I went to. Was like, all right, if you remember from the last video, I shared about a doctor that was not a good fit for me personally. Maybe she was for other people, but for me, no. Not a good fit, not okay. But watch that video so you can catch up on all that and what happened. And then here I'm dealing with coding errors. Now I know people make mistakes, things happen, but that should have been fixed like instantly. Like, if you realize that you have somebody who is in a life-threatening situation and you coded something wrong, you got to do your job and fix it. So that's where we were at. So my chemo got delayed. And then June 6th, I resumed chemo. And it turns out the type of shot that I needed, they didn't want to approve. My insurance thought it was medically not necessary for me to have life-saving treatment to increase my white blood cell count. So I had more than a count of 1 of white blood cells, so I could safely resume chemo. So I got Granic shots. They had to give me like a different brand. Eventually I would get them, but that was so frustrating. Like, I'm 1 round in, I've just experienced the horrors of AC chemo for the very first time. My hair is falling out in chunks. Like, I had really long hair down to my thighs before this, and it was just falling out. There was piles of hair everywhere. My significant other at the time had to travel for work, so I'm by myself. No fault to him at that time, okay? But it was a miserable experience. So I go through round 2 on June 6th, and initially in the beginning I thought it was going to be fun to wear themed shirts for every chemo, and I wore a really fun shirt. The reference, if you were a Game of Thrones fan, you'll know this, where it was me. I had a fun shirt. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to post them in the video if I figure out how to do that. But yeah, tell cancer I wanted to know it was me. So I was trying to make it fun. I had lost my hair at that point, and that's where we stood. So we'll fast forward to the next time. So I ended up having to go in and get Granix injections 4 days a week. 4 days a week, okay? I'm feeling awful. At one point I ended up pretty much being wheelchair bound because I had no strength or energy to walk, and had to have people take me to the appointments. I had to go in for an ultrasound a couple treatments in to just make sure that the chemo was shrinking my tumor, and we found out yes it was. So great, the AC chemo was doing its job even though it was torturing me. And so we did that, and then the next round of treatment, let's see, I think I might have skipped one. There were some times where I was just so sick, and like I lost so much weight. Before all this happened, you know, I was always pretty thin, and I knew like I would have a hard time holding on to weight, so I purposely gained like 10 or 15 extra pounds before chemo just so I would have like extra body fat to get me through it. And I lost all of that and then some. I was like a little skeleton until they started pumping me with steroids, and then I got that whole moon face thing going on. So my next round of chemotherapy was on June 19th. So that was round 3 of AC. Had to go in for Granix injections the next couple days. More blood work, more oncology appointments. I was actually still working a little bit. I went back to work 2 days a week for just a couple hours, just barely working, but I still worked, trying to make ends meet. That was challenging. And so I had my primary doctor, I had more blood work done, but I just kept getting incredibly sick. So July 3rd, I went in for my 4th and final round of AC chemo. This is like the most impersonal chemo that you can ever get, because the nurse has to wear a hazmat outfit while giving this chemo to you because it could like destroy skin if it touches it, and they have to like pump it in at certain intervals and certain speeds or whatever. If you've been there, you know. So July 3rd, I went in for my 4th round of chemo. Here's what I wrote. Okay, I'm going to read off my phone again. My 4th round of chemo is underway. It's my last round of AC chemo, which is one of the most aggressive chemos out there. I'm hoping the next 12 rounds of Taxol will be easier on me. I'll be on chemo until October. Chemo is the toughest thing I've ever had to go through physically. but certainly not the hardest thing I've ever been through. The last round sent me to the ER for the 3rd time since starting chemo, complete with being admitted into the hospital for a few days due to chemo-induced complications. Now, at this point, I have never been admitted into a hospital. I've gone to the ER a few times here and there, but never to the point where I was admitted into the hospital. That was a whole new experience for me. I couldn't believe that I was that sick. You know, I just could not believe it. Okay, let's continue. So it sent me to the hospital for a few days due to chemo-induced complications. It was rough. My stay included being put into anaphylaxis after they tried a new medication on me that we now know I'm very allergic to. Now, I was probably just allergic to it at that time, I'm guessing. And thankfully they were able to quickly treat the reaction. I've survived the 2nd round of being neutropenic, so neutropenic yet again. Let's hope this final round of AC chemo doesn't do a repeat. Thanks for all the kind messages and well wishes. I try to respond as quickly as I can, but some days I sleep for hours. I can't wait for this all to be over. The good news is my tumor is shrinking and I can no longer find it in my body. So when I first was diagnosed, I couldn't even feel the tumor, but by the time I started my treatment, it had grown to 5 centimeters, so I could absolutely feel it at that time. So that week, I was not right. I was getting sicker and sicker, and I just felt like I was just getting really anxious, and I was kind of like feeling like I could die. Something's just not right. So I had to go in for another Granix injection. They had me come in for hydration, so I had to go get hydration because my adrenal whatever, I forgot what the right word is, but my body just could not hold on to hydration. I was continuously dehydrated despite drinking a ton of water. I mean, I threw up a lot too. Let's be real, that's part of chemo. You're vomiting on the bathroom floor. But the hydration in my body was bad. I had to like get full on bags of like hydration right after treatment a couple days because my body just couldn't handle what was being put through. It just couldn't. It was more than it could have ever asked. So I went in for my injections and still tried to go to work. Was feeling absolutely miserable, and I remember going in for hydration that following week, and the day before that I went to work. And so I own my own business, pet sitting and dog walking. I can always talk about that in a future video of how I've been successful in doing that. I love what I do so much, but that's a topic for another day. But I'm walking one of my regular clients. It's a Great Dane, sweetest dog. I miss him so much. He has since passed, but he was like, he knew something was wrong with me. I could barely walk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna let down my clients. This is so bad. What's wrong with me? Why can't I walk? I would like feel like I was gonna pass out taking 1 or 2 steps. I don't even know how I drove home, and I probably walked the shortest distance I could have ever walked for a dog walk because I just was not right. And that dog, he was so sweet. He like was trying to make me stop, and he was trying to make me sit. He was protecting me. My heart rate was like close to like 200 plus doing nothing. Something just wasn't right. I was having horrific back pain. There was just all kinds of things going on. And when I saw my oncologist, they were like, you need to go to the ER now. And so I did. And this is what I wrote on July 13th. The last round of chemo decided to not let me off easy. I started having weird symptoms and shortness of breath. Each round of chemo has sent me to the ER, and as it turns out, round 4 really wanted to one-up the others. Complications from the cancer and chemotherapy end up giving me a pulmonary embolism. I am really lucky they found it before it traveled more and either gave me a stroke or a heart attack. I'm very lucky to be alive right now. I'm stuck in the hospital for now, and I don't know what will happen with future chemotherapy treatments. This cancer thing is a wild ride. So when I was having like horrific back pain that morning, and I thought, you know, it was just bone pain from the chemo, and oh, it was awful. It was unreal. And I just couldn't breathe. I couldn't function. I was so restless. I couldn't get comfortable. And I just felt like every breath was going to be my last breath. It was just the weirdest feeling. And by the time I went into the hospital and they did a CT scan, the blood clot, the pulmonary embolism, had just entered the bottom chamber of my lungs. So we caught it just in time, and I ended up having to be on a heavy dose of Lovanex, eventually on Eliquis. It was a whole process, and later down the road, it was a huge delay in getting off that medication so I could return to gymnastics, because blood thinners and sports don't mix. So that was crazy. So I was in the hospital for quite a while for this. Finally got to go home. I was in the hospital for quite some time. Finally got to go home. Went in for round 5 of chemo. I switched over to Taxol, and so I had to start going. I was doing Lupron injections too to shut down my reproductive system. That was like, because my cancer was estrogen positive, I was getting those, and also to try to preserve fertility. I think I might be missing an update here, but I wrote on July 25th, a day after my round 6 of chemo, I wrote, I have been cautiously optimistic about the new chemo I started last week. This isn't a change, as the switch has been part of the plan all along. Last week, my oncologist decided I was healthy enough to continue chemo, so I completed round 5 of chemo with the new kind of chemo. I felt exhausted and had lots of bone and muscular pain as expected, but I did not feel like I was close to dying as I was on the first type of chemo. I am thankful it all went as well as it could, despite all of the complications that I'm still dealing with now that chemo has caused me to have. I may never be the same again, but it's better than being dead. Yesterday was round 6 of chemo. I am pretty tired today, but again, cautiously optimistic that it will be another good week. Please ignore how my nails look in the photo. I am not allowed to get my nails done. That was really sad. I love having my nails done. Risk of infection too high. Couldn't go out to the world. Anyway, that was sad. I am not allowed to get my nails done while I'm on chemo. Too risky and chance of infection. And I'm patiently waiting for the rest of my gel nails to come off on their own as I continue to trim them. 6 rounds of chemo done, 10 to go. I think I most look forward to not getting stabbed in the chest every week. That needle hurts. So if you had a port, I had a portacath in my chest, and that's how I got my chemo. They would put a needle into the port, so they'd have to like stab it through my skin. Not fun. I had to do that so many times. Every single infusion, a lot of my blood work, or the blood was done, you know, normal. And the the port flushes every 6 weeks after chemo. No, not fun. So my updates get shorter. That I ended up having a time during chemo. I'm not sure which round because I cannot see the update, but I had an allergic reaction to the chemo and I thought I was dying. Like, everything just faded to black and I could just feel everything from my body just slipping away. And I was like, okay. I could feel the warmth of the hands of whoever was putting their hand on mine. I could feel that. And I just focused on that, and that's how I feel like I survived, because I focused on that and it didn't let that feeling go. They reversed it and it was horrible. So I ended up being allergic to the solvent in the chemo for Taxol, but they still had to give it to me anyway because that's just all the options were at that time, or so they say. And that was hard. I had to go every single week knowing I could have that reaction all over again. That was scary. That was traumatizing. I just couldn't wait to be done because it was something where the reaction could happen then or anytime, you know, because it's in your system. So I update round seven. So things are kind of going a little bit more normal. Because of that pulmonary embolism, I had to have a ultrasound of my stomach and my legs and everything just to see if I had any more like blood clots that had formed. I went through my 7th round of chemo. My doctor ended up leaving, and then I got switched to another doctor who, when I got there, they had already switched me to another doctor, and I got surprised by a different doctor in the room. It was a whole thing that was very confusing, and I was like, am I having really bad chemo brain? Because I checked in for one doctor, and then while I waited in the waiting room, they switched me to a different doctor. And my updates on some of these days just start getting slower or shorter because I was just so tired and fatigued. And I wrote round 7 of 16 of chemotherapy, exhausted but pushing through. And then my updates got a little bit less because I was just so tired. I ended up having to have another CT scan just to rule out some stuff because of my lungs. They wanted to make sure too that like I didn't have any signs of metastatic spread because of the lung issue. So I had chemotherapy round 8, and then I had to do a lot of cardiology appointments just to make sure things were okay there, because my heart rate was just out of control. It was so rapid. My resting heart rate was over 100 beats per minute, and I was an athlete, so my resting heart rate was normally like in the high 50s, low 60s, and it was just crazy. So then, okay, I updated round 9. I finally, like, people thought I like died because I stopped updating because I just didn't feel good. Taxol was a whole nother beast. Taxol caused a lot of pain in my bones where it was just so painful, unbelievably painful, and each time it would get worse and worse. It was like someone took a hammer to my entire body. Just everything hurt. So my camera's gonna die. Let me grab my other battery and we'll continue on. New battery. Let's continue on. Okay, we have left off at round 9. We're getting closer to the end. And at this point, I could just see my face is swelling, the inflammation. I still, to this day, have so much inflammation in my body. You know, despite eating healthy and being a competitive athlete, the swelling is just, I don't know if it's ever truly going to go away. But let's get started with round 9. I wrote on August 14th, round 9. Last week was round 8 of 16 for chemo. I ended up being so exhausted this round that even posting an update was too difficult. I had a mild allergic reaction to the chemo and they reversed it, and then treatment continued. My energy levels were so low the entire week. I eventually ended up in the ER. ER yet again. ER late Sunday night because of a spiked fever, which can be very dangerous when you're going through chemo. Luckily, I only had to stay a few hours while they treated me and I was able to go home. Chemo is no joke, and it continues to destroy my body. Even my brows and lashes decided to start breaking up with me. I had been so hopeful they would stay since they held on for so long. So I had lost my hair completely by June, and I had just a few eyelashes and eyebrows. My eyelashes and eyebrows still have never grown back all the way like how they used to be. They're a lot shorter for my eyelashes than what they were, but you know, it is what it is. But I remember I touched my brow and then all of the hairs fell off, and I was like, well, there we go. Now I truly have no hair. And then I wrote, today I finally started feeling better. And of course it is chemo day already, and my wings are getting cut off again as I write this. Today is round 9 of 16. I already had a mild allergic reaction to the chemo and it has been reversed. It is no fun doing a treatment knowing you will probably have an allergic reaction. Luckily, the team of nurses here keep me safe and a quick stop to the chemo and reverse the reaction. October cannot come soon enough. 7 rounds of chemo to go. That was not fun. My fatigue was so bad. So we continued on. I had some friends from high school meet up with me. They came to see me. That was so kind. And then the next week I had to go through more blood work, another ultrasound to kind of check on how the tumor was shaping up, making sure things were better. And then round 10 happened, and I wrote, round 10 of 16 is today. The chemo seems to be much nearer, or the end of chemo seems to be much nearer since August is almost over and I'll be done with chemo in October. Currently hooked up to the chemo that likes to give me allergic reactions. So far so good today. Update, no allergic reactions during chemo today. So they ended up having to drip my chemo really slowly, so I was there pretty much all day. Oh, Eevee's coming. Hey, Eevee. Hi. You coming to join us? Yes, baby. Good girl. Oh my goodness, pretty Eevee. Let me turn this so you can see how beautiful Eevee is. Kiki, you gonna come join? Well, Eevee's gonna hang out. So I completed round 10. That was exciting because I was officially in double digits. Had, my follow-up. I actually did a house sitting job. That was my first and only one I did during chemo, and that was challenging to do, but I was grateful to have a little bit more money because I was so broke. It's bath time. You can give yourself a bath. And then round 11 the following week. Round 11 of 16. And you can just tell, from the pictures I post, my face continuously gets more and more gray. I had a scratch on my nose that just took forever to heal. My immune system sucked, and it was just bad. And then round 11 of 16, I wrote, I've already had an allergic reaction, and the chemo had to be stopped once. They're trying to get up the chemo. Positive vibes appreciated. I don't want to have another allergic reaction. The hardest part of doing this chemo is that I'm at a high risk of having an allergic reaction every single time. I hope I can get through this and all the remaining cycles. So I made it through, went in for my hydration, and the whole thing, we started right back up all over again. And then I feel like every photo you see of me after, I just look so done. You can just see it, like my spark is gone. I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore, but I know I had to. So round 12, we are now September 4th. I had a shirt on that day that said Rise and Thrive, and so I wrote, Rise and thrive, but not you, Cancer. Round 12 of 16 of chemo. Let's hope for no allergic reactions. It has been an exhausting week. I had lots of energy one day. Thank you, steroids. And then I have been wiped out for the rest. The bone and muscle pain from chemo seems like it is building. People act so strange toward me in public pretty often too. Lots of weird and oftentimes unnecessary comments. It is amazing what some people think is okay to say. Update, no allergic reactions. So that was great. No allergic reactions that week. Continued on. I had to see a surgeon for another complication I was having during chemo, just to make sure everything was okay there. The following week, I had to meet with my surgeon to kind of go over some planning. I had to get ruled out and cleared for that. I had to go in to see one of, like, a pulmonology doctor or pulmonologist to go over everything. I had to be under their care because of the pulmonary embolism. And then we move on to September 11th is when I had round 13. And this one, my face is even more puffier than it was the last time. And I wrote, it's Chemo Wednesday, round 13 of 16. I'm pretty tired this week. I feel stronger but more than exhausted than usual. I think I'm ready for this cancer thing to all be over with, but it's still a long road ahead for me. The chemo continues to build in my system and the bone and muscle pain continue. One in particular was not very nice, but I hope none of you ever have to feel this level of pain and discomfort. The strange and hurtful things that people think are okay to say in public continue. One in particular was not very nice, but too bad I'm allowed to still take up space in this world. Cancer or no cancer. I'm staying positive, but I'm so tired. Let's hope for no allergic reactions today. Update. Only a very minor allergic reaction. It was just the weirdest thing. If this is the memory I think it is, it's the one where some person straight up asked me how much longer I had left to live. Not okay. You know, not okay. Random stranger, no thank you. Not okay to say. And then I had somebody like not even see me, or they look horrified and spooked by me, because I know I looked really bad, but I was trying to like go get a grocery item or something from the store, and someone rammed their cart into me and almost knocked me over. And people just did really, really strange things. Okay. So I had to go in for my injections, my blood work. I was by myself for a bit. Round 14. September 18th was round 14. And I wrote, we're getting close to the end. Today is round 14 of 16 of chemo. I've had tons of pain from the chemo again, and stronger than the last round, but I did my best to not let it get me down and continue exercise and go out and do things when I could. I've also been battling more coding errors than necessary, as portions of my treatment, non-chemo at least, are messed up. And this is where it gets really bad, because at this point, my Lupron injections, which are preserving my ovarian function so I can keep my fertility, hopefully, they decided like not to give them to me. And I had got a brand new insurance card. Same exact insurance. It was just a different card. Nothing changed. The policy, nothing changed. And then like the place where I did chemo, like they need the new card. I gave it to them 1 month in advance. They chose to not process it. And then I got delayed chemo. Like I had a fight to have chemo. And like, this is why I think to this day I am still just exasperated at having to continuously advocate, because it's a lot to handle. So anyway, I wrote, I've been battling the coding errors almost every week. It seems like there is some sort of issue or another with the insurance or with oncology. Things should be made simple for cancer patients. We are battling enough. I am doing my best to stay positive and persist. Let's hope for no allergic reactions. Update, no allergic reactions. So, continue on with the regular appointments. I had to have a chest x-ray done, more lab work, and then September 25th was chemotherapy round 15. And I wrote, it's chemo Wednesday again. This week is round 15 of 16. It's pretty cool to say that next week will be my last week of chemo. I am not feeling my best today. I still haven't received 2 necessary injections. Thank you, coding errors and finger pointing games. You can see that I was still dealing with this. Like, I ended up missing quite a few of really important parts of my treatment, and I don't think I ever got them. And sometimes I think that's why I have issues today. I didn't get all of the treatment that I was required to receive, that I needed to receive, because of issues like this that just shouldn't happen. So, and I wrote, the chemos build upon each other and I'm feeling more effects. They stay in your system for around 3 to 4 weeks, so I am hurting more and more. But I won't let it get me down, and I will continue to push through until the end. I usually spend my entire work day at chemo, and I can't wait to have my Wednesdays back soon. Hopefully no allergic reactions today. Update, only a minor allergic reaction that went away quickly on its own without intervention. And then the final week. Week 16, I finished chemotherapy officially. Week 16, October 2nd. I remember at the time I felt incredibly lucky for some reason that I finished chemo in October during Breast Cancer Awareness Week. How cool. But yeah, I finished it on October 2nd. I got to ring the bell, and having that done, oh my god, I could cry. Just having that done, knowing that portion was over. Hopefully there would be no more treatment like that ever again, because chemo was awful and I never want to have to go through that again. And I always call chemotherapy life-saving destruction. It destroyed my body, but it saved my body at the same time. It's so weird how that can coincide together. But I finished, and I had a long road to recovery. So I still had active cancer in my body. So by the time I finished chemotherapy, my tumor had shrunk down to an 8 by 8 by 8 millimeter tumor. There was sign of necrosis around the tumor, but there was still a small active tumor, so we had to watch that and be careful. But I needed to have a whole month off of recovery because I was going to have surgery. So we'll fast forward. I had to go in for a breast MRI to just try to see where the, what things look like now in terms of the tumor, what all needed to be removed. So I went in for that, and then I actually went back to work a little bit that week. I had to go see my primary doctor to get a clearance for surgery. I actually did some Grubhub delivery work, so that was hard. I did like an hour and a half, and like I was just so shaky. It was just too much for me to handle at that time. I had to wait to go back to doing that. Did a house sitting job, so I went back and did that, so I was happy to have some work. And then I had to have an EKG done again, and then I went up to see my parents, and that was incredibly emotional to do that, because I got to spend time with my mom and dad, and like I didn't get to see them at all during my treatment because they were too sick to travel to see me, and I was too sick to travel to see them. We were a 10-hour drive apart, so that wasn't an option. And then my best friend came down with me to take care of me because I was going to be going through surgery, and I had never had a major surgery like this. Now, the surgery I had was different, right? So it wasn't a mastectomy, but I had a lumpectomy, but there's still recovery involved. And because I had such a hard time with chemo, you know, my best friend wanted to be there for me, and I'm so grateful. I came back, we had to do like an MRI, we had to do like a lymphatic mapping, which, oh boy, that not a fun experience, having to have needles jammed into you while they map out your lymphatic system. That was absolutely awful. Not a fun experience. So then November 5th was the day I went in for my surgery. That's the first time I've been through that major. Now, I know a lot of people have had way major surgeries, but that was my surgery that I did. I had a sentinel lymph node removed, so I ended up having 2 incisions, and they had to go back in and remove a little bit more tissue during that surgery. But at that time I wouldn't know it, but once that tumor was out, I would become cancer free as far as we know, or no evidence of disease. That surgery would take it all out of my body. I wouldn't know until like a few weeks after everything was ran through. So when I was diagnosed, I was stage 2B, and they were able to get it down to stage 1A, shrink it back to 1A through chemo, which is really cool. So that time I had switched to yet another oncologist because my other oncologist left, and then a new one came in, and I had to do a lot of post-op stuff and recovery, and my best friend was with me for like 2 weeks taking care of me, and that was just the best. I'm so grateful. So Sarah, if you're watching, thank you. You are just the best friend I could ever ask for, and she took such good care of me. And then I had to go home to my parents because my dad was in hospice, and I had to take care of him until he passed away. And I still had to go through radiation, and that was really hard. That's a whole separate topic, so I'm going to leave that there because I will cry if I talk about that more. But went in, I had to meet my radiation oncologist on November 26th, and I got everything situated there. I met her, and then let's see, I went back to work for a little bit, and I had to do December 12th a CT scan and mapping, so that got delayed a couple weeks. And I really wanted to finish all of my treatment in 2019 because I thought 2020 was going to be the best year ever. Because I thought, oh yeah, I'll be cancer free, cool, you know, all done. But because my CT scan and mapping for my radiation didn't happen for 2 more weeks, everything got delayed, and I didn't get to start radiation until the 19th. So radiation's a whole nother thing. We can talk more about that, but kind of like a high-level overview of it is I did 20 rounds of radiation. My last radiation was a double treatment, and I went through radiation on the 19th of December is when I started, And I believe that's when I started tamoxifen, around that time. And yeah, I did radiation. And there was like one time when, yeah, Christmas, you know, no radiation that day. The 27th, I had my radiation got canceled because the machine broke, when I was devastated because that meant there'd be a whole nother delay. But I went in, I was actually working out a little bit. My mom ended up in the hospital really sick, and I was having to fly back and forth between Northern and Southern California every single day, do my radiation, go deal with her in the hospital and help her and all that. It was just such a ordeal that week. Trying to work, trying to go through radiation, and then finally things were a little bit chaotic. My mom ended up in the hospital again, and on my birthday, I remember, and I was having to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Eventually I was able to get a family member to help me and stay with my mom, so I could finish treatment. And then officially on January 20th of 2020, I finished active treatment for breast cancer. That was the best. And my mom ended up being in the hospital for another week, and then eventually she came home, and that was great. But yeah, that's just kind of what it looked like. So basically my treatment went, if you're still watching, I know this is a longer video, from May 17th of 2019 to January 20th of 2020. That's almost a whole year. That's a good 8-9 months or so. And that's how long everything was. And I was on like tamoxifen. Eventually they switched me to examestane, and then to letrozole, and then to anastrozole. So I've been through all of those, and that's just kind of the overview of my treatment. And almost 7 years later, I'm here, and I'm so grateful. But that treatment sucked. Let's be real. I know it's different now because I've talked to some women who have gone through treatment for what I had, and their treatment wasn't as lengthy, I think. But also it really depends. Like, just as a reminder, like, I'm not a medical professional, so don't listen to me on that. But everyone's cancer is different. Everyone has a different type and stage and prognosis, so every treatment's gonna look a little bit different. But the one I had, that just wasn't a fun experience. So, but I'm grateful it's over and we are past that, and I appreciate you sticking with me and listening to that really long video. I can only imagine how long it is, but you know, that's kind of the overview of what life looked like for me going through chemotherapy. It is probably one of the worst things I have ever been through. And I don't say that to discourage you. I feel like if your doctor recommends you to go through chemo, you should probably listen to them. But again, don't take anything I say as advice. It's not advice. I'm just sharing my experience and my perspective of what happened. But it is the reason why I'm here. But I have a lot of medical and health kind of related issues because of it to this day. But I'm here. So I'm gonna stop here. My little babies are ready to go to bed. Huh, Eevee? Gonna go night night. You can see how sweet she is, all curled up, and Kiki's over here. Kiki, you wanna say goodbye to everybody? Eevee, you wanna say goodbye? Yeah, she's a good girl. Sleeping. It's past their bedtime. But yeah, I wanna know what questions you guys have. Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll probably do a Q&A at some point with all your questions. And I feel like once we reach, if it's even possible, dare I dream, if we reach 1,000 subscribers, I think I can do a lot. So maybe we'll do a live at that point. But again, I don't have any expectations. I'm just sharing my experience and hoping by doing so somebody feels a little less alone. So enough of me rambling. This is going to be an incredibly long video, so buckle up and enjoy the story. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a wonderful day and stay on top of your screenings. I don't ever want you to have to go through what I went through. Okay. What do you think, Eevee? You giving yourself a bath time? You want to go night-night? I want to go night-night. I'll talk to you later, friends.